Hello and welcome. We are so glad to have you joining us today for Scientists in Action, Bringing Back Bison. My name is Kate Neff, and I'm the Virtual Programs Coordinator for the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, where incidentally, we are not broadcasting from today. As you can tell, we're in fact in the field. We are at the Rocky Mountain Arsenal National Wildlife Refuge. I have with me today an amazing scientist from Scientists in Action. We are going to be talking about bison and what we're doing in this field today in a matter of minutes. Before we get started, however, I want to go ahead and do some quick housekeeping items. First off, if you are on camera school, we're going to ask that you stay muted and off camera just until we cue you in about 20 minutes or so for our open Q&A. If you are not going to be on camera, we still want to hear your questions. I do have an iPad with me and it has a chat function open. So any questions, students, teachers that you want to add to the chat, go ahead and send them here and I'll make sure that our talent hears them and we get them answered. Otherwise, I want to go ahead and do a quick thank you to not only our friends here at the Refuge. We have Susan and Sarah and EC off camera. We also have Greg from the museum behind the camera today. And we've got Matthew down below doing all our tech and Kim and Asa in the studio. Without everyone, this would not be possible. And we are thrilled to have you. So without further ado, Susan, why are we out here in this field today? What do you do out here?
Hi. Well, hi, everyone. So glad you could join us at Rocky Mountain Arsenal National Wildlife Refuge today. I'm a park ranger in visitor services, so I spend my time at the visitor center, but up here at our bison corral today. So you are here as part of our bison annual checkup that we're doing over the course of about 3 days.
Pretty cool. So bison doctor visits, more or less, and it's taken a whole crew of people to make this happen. Before we get into the nitty gritty about what is a bison and why are we doing these exams in the first place, we actually have a poll question we'd like to throw your way. So studio, if we could go ahead and cue poll question number 1. Our question for you is, how much can a male bison weigh? 1,000 pounds, 1,500 pounds, 2,000 pounds, or 2,500? Go ahead and warm up your brains by making your best guess of how much does exactly a male bison weigh. So students, if you're on your own computer, you can answer on your own. Otherwise, teachers, I would say go ahead and survey your students, and we'll give you a couple more seconds to make your best guess. All right, so if we could go ahead and end that poll and we'll see how everyone did. And it looks like, kind of a split, but a lot of people did choose the last option of 2,500. So what's the right answer, Susan?
So if you did 2,500, you're very close, but the answer is typically a male bison weighs 2,000 pounds. So thanks for doing that poll. That's a fun number to know. Calves weigh about 1,200 pounds for reference.
Calves do?
I'm sorry, calves.
Oh, I was like, that is a huge baby.
That's so sorry. Congratulations, everyone. I'm very sorry. So females, our cows weigh 1,200 pounds. Okay. So yes,
How
yes.
much do the babies weigh?
Babies weigh about 50 pounds. So
Okay.
yeah, pretty small compared to those 2,000 pound male bison. So
that's still a pretty big baby. 50-pound baby. Bigger than my dog at home for sure. So, but 2,000 pounds, that is a huge animal. So what is exactly a bison? Like, how would you describe it? Because I know some of our viewers maybe haven't seen a bison in person, or
sure.
What are they related to?
So bison, you'll see they're big, fuzzy animals. They've got a big shoulder hump. They are about 5 to 6 feet. They're a bit lower. Big, wide face and body. Their sense of smell is their best feature. When you look at a bison, you see they've got a really big nose. So that's going to be their best sense of smell. And then they've got these kind of short, little, more skinny legs. But if you can believe it, they are quite the athletes. Bison can actually spin around very quickly. They are good swimmers. They also run about 35 miles an hour. So think about that when you're in the car next time. And they can jump about 5 feet high. So pretty amazing athletes.
Wow. Okay. So just for reference, when we're thinking about how big these animals are, I'm 5'7". We're kind of similar in height. Their shoulder would be, above our heads. So in fact, actually, look, here's one cruising by just now. It's on its way out from its little bison exam, and it is cooking. That's a
Mhm.
fast animal.
Mhm.
I could not outrun that, could I?
No,
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 I
we
wouldn't try.
couldn't. No.
Do not try. Okay, so they are fast and fuzzy and pretty large.
Yep.
So for an animal that size, what do they eat? How can they maintain that body mass?
Yeah. So think about it for a minute. If they are carnivores, omnivores, or herbivores.
Hmm.
I'll let you think for a minute.
And just as a refresher,
Yes.
carnivore like
Meat
meat,
eat
herbivore like herbs or plants,
plants,
and
exactly.
omnis.
Omni is both,
Cool. Okay.
right? Right. So if you are thinking about that and you said herbivore, you are correct. So they are plant eating. They are so big, but that's what they do all day. They pretty much graze and eat grasses 9 to 11 hours a day.
Ooh.
They also take some breaks. They walk up to about 18 miles a day, so they get a lot of exercise as well. They take a nap and they might wallow in the dirt a little bit. That feels really good to them. It's like taking their bath.
Oh, a dirt bath.
Yes.
Dirt bath, dirt nap.
Yep.
What a life. And I see, so we're playing a lot of footage, so
Mhm.
y'all can kind of get a visual for them eating their grass and just munching and cruising. I mean, they're not moving very fast, so 18 miles at this speed would take a while, I think. But
Mhm.
how do they travel? Looks maybe in groups.
They do. So typically there is a lead female of the herd and they travel with her. She determines when they're going to go eat, when they're going to take a rest, when they're going to stop for water. That herd is made up of other females and young males or bulls and also calves. And then the males split off. The older males, they're either on their own or they're in small groups.
Okay. Wow. So kind of a matriarchal society driven by
Yes,
that female bison.
that's right.
Cool. Okay. So, oh yeah, and we can see here are a ton of bison grouped together.
Mhm.
So they are a herd. Are they native to this environment?
Yes, they are. They are native here. They are the largest land mammal of North America, and they are native to this area. We did reintroduce bison to our refuge back in 2007.
Cool. Okay. So, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Why maybe they weren't here to begin with when they
Mhm.
were hundreds of years ago, and now they're
Mhm.
back again. But so these are animals that are not, I guess, ill adapted for this area. And to that effect, they live here year round, correct?
They do. This is their home. So what you're looking at behind you here is their pasture, their home every day. They actually love the fall and winter. They have that heavy coat on. It keeps them warm. They're actually even more busy in the winter. They just really thrive in cooler environments. So you can get a good look at that pasture out there.
That kind of plains or prairie environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just for context for all our viewers, if you've never come out to the refuge here, this is and that's a pretty cool. This is not far from Denver, folks. We're watching trucks herd bison. This almost looks like a truck ad. This is
Yeah.
wild, and what an experience to witness. But yeah, this is not very far from metropolitan Denver. So, Susan, what are they doing?
Yeah,
Why
so
are
what
those
you're seeing
trucks doing
here,
that?
yeah, so that's our staff in those two trucks. And you can see back out in the distance, that's the group of animals. Now what they're doing is they're making smaller groups of bison so that they can get them into the corral to get ready for their doctor checkup. So this is how we separate out so we have a manageable number to move them through that corral. So they're going to go all the way through and then go through the first gate. Once they make it through that first gate, that will be open, giving them direction where to go. A person will close that gate behind them. And you'll also see as you're looking at the corral, our staff is really up above, working on the corral here, about 7 feet off. They will start closing gates as they move through.
Wow, what an organization. And
Mhm.
we're going to talk about this in a minute, but one thing I just want to highlight is the amount of care and patience that is going into this. There's a huge crew kind of above and even down below. working with these bison to ensure that they are passed through safely and in a very non-stressful way, because these are wild animals, folks. Um, they're not trained to walk into these pens on their own. So this is very neat.
Absolutely.
And this is um yeah, this is real footage. It's very dusty right now, actually. It's pretty great.
Yeah, but you guys are here joining us as we are moving the bison through the corral. It really is pretty spectacular to see them. Bison like to go wherever they can see there's an opening for them. So that's what we do is we move them through, we give them that option where they naturally would want to go. And then through a series of gate systems that will work them through very calmly to get to the chute, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Very cool. So when we're thinking about like herds, and I already see a chat question, like how big can herds get? Ours are only, or these ones are only a couple hundred. But in the wild, like historically, how many bison, how many bison like did we have at one point? Like how big were those herds?
Right. So about in the 1800s there are about 30 million bison. And then their numbers dwindled significantly by the end of the 1800s to just being a few hundred. Today, we are managing bison here at our National Wildlife Refuge at about 200 animals, 200, 250. We're actually working with about 250 over the 3-day span, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to get them through the corral.
Wow. Cool. All right. So 200 strong. And I know one question that people have a lot of the time is about the babies. So how many babies are here?
So we have 50 babies here. As early as maybe even late March or April. And then our calves are born all the way up even into October. So it just depends, but majority of them are really right around Mother's Day.
Cool. And if we're lucky, we will see one run by. I'm not going to say what they're called because actually we have a poll question for you. We're going to go ahead and throw poll question number 2 your way because there's a fun name for the baby bison or the calves. And the question is, what are baby bison called? Red dogs, bisonettes, bird pups, or hoof cubs? This is something that I did not know until about 2 weeks ago. So go ahead and see if you can outsmart our poll and make your best guess. All right, so let's go ahead and answer if you have not done so yet. All right, let's go ahead and close that poll down and see how did everyone do. Ooh, it looks like the number one answer was bisonette.
I like Bisonette. That is a really fun name. I know it's very clever. But the real answer is red dogs. We call those bison red dogs. And we do that because when they're first born, they're a reddish orangey color. And then after a few months, they turn more of that darker brown that you see with the rest of the herd. So that's a little fun fact for you to share. They are red dogs.
Red dogs. And you can see here those teeny ones or that very like orangey red she was talking about. And over the course of today, we've seen ones that are definitely a couple months old and they're like half black and kind of half that orange color. And then the adults are that very dark brown black. So red dogs, the more you know.
Yep.
That's a good trivia question.
It is. It's
Remember
a good
that
one.
Yep. So while we talk about names, actually, and here's one that I've seen pop up a couple times. Is it bison or buffalo? And what's the difference?
Yeah. So we hear that really all the time. People come in and say, where are the buffalo? What you're seeing here and what we have in the plains area, this is bison. And their scientific name is actually really not that scientific. It's bison.
Convenient.
That's right. That's right. It's very clear. They are bison. They are not buffalo. I think some people confuse them because we have the Cape buffalo and the water buffalo. And maybe long ago they thought they looked similar. And there we have a picture.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Much less fuzzy.
Unless it's fuzzy, horns are very different. Our bison, their horns are more up They say females have horns that look a little bit more crescent shaped, like the moon, curve of the moon.
Mhm.
And then the males look more like goalposts, more straight up and about 2
Nice.
feet high. So that's a really good look at the difference between the species.
Cool. These ones wear sweaters and have short horns versus the
Yeah,
handlebar mustache horns of the
that's right.
buffalo.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Cool. Anyways, well, that's a good thing to know. So we're
Yeah.
talking about bison today. Sweet. So we're looking at bison, and now we know they travel in herds. They eat a lot of grass. I mean, upwards of however many pounds it would take to sustain a giant body like that.
Yeah, about
Um,
20 pounds, 20 to 30 pounds a
mhm.
day that they are eating. Um, And I think the other one of the things we did talk about too is as they're eating and moving around the refuge, our refuge is about 15,000 acres. It's very large.
That's awesome.
But as they're moving through, you can tell a lot about when they're feeding and eating, tell a lot about their mood.
Okay.
So their behavior is very interesting. When you watch them in some of their footage you've seen, maybe their tails swish back and forth, kind of like your dog might, if it's just happy or easygoing at home. Um, when their tail stands more upright, that means they don't like what's going on around them. They might be a little agitated, that sort of thing. Also, we have the rut season. That's our breeding season. That's when those tails go up for some dominance, pushing and shoving each other as well. But you can really tell a lot about a bison just from observing it from a distance, just watching its tail.
Cool.
Mhm.
Well, and that's a pretty good indicator because I've not seen a single tail upright since I got
Yeah.
here today. So even while we are doing doctor visits for these bison, they are
Mhm.
not stressed out. They're still swishing their tails.
Mhm.
So that's pretty cool. How old do they typically live to be?
About 20 years. Our bison don't have any natural predators here. So predators for the bison would include the grizzly bear and the wolf. So
Mm.
we don't have those there. So they have a pretty easygoing life here. We do have coyotes, but we got to remember that when calves are born, the herd does really watch over and protect them. So you got to get through those 2,000-pound bulls, 1,200-pound mamas, and other females. So not likely at all. So they tend to live a little bit longer here.
Very cool.
Mhm.
And it's just the nature of filming animals doing their wild animal thing. Minutes before this session started, we had a female that didn't want to leave, and we're like, that's pretty weird. She'd
Mhm.
gotten her exam and she was waiting by the gate, didn't want to leave. And then lo and behold, a couple seconds later, a baby came out, and then together they left. So clearly she was being productive and wanting to make sure baby got escorted out to the field. So
They're
very
very caring of their young.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool. It's
Yeah.
that, I mean, herd mentality that
Mhm.
really holds true with bison like this.
Yes.
So speaking of herds, obviously, so this is a herd specific to the wildlife refuge. And we have a couple other herds in other places in the US, right?
Yes, we do. So within the refuge system, there's a total of 5. Our refuge, there's also one in Nebraska, Iowa, Oklahoma, and Montana. And so we see genes from our bison herd here from all of those other national wildlife refuges. And then there are also other public lands, the Bureau of Land Management and the national parks that have bison.
Cool. So this is like a huge group effort, right? And
Yes.
I believe I heard there's also like Native American populations involved and a lot of government agencies and some like
Yes.
it takes a whole village
It
to
really
have
does.
this going.
It really, really does.
Cool.
So one of the things we're doing here is the reason why they're going through their doctor checkup is to get an overall look at the bison. Obviously, we can do some of that from vehicles, but now when we're up above, get to see them, move them through in a single file to the squeeze chute. We can also get their genetic information, and that is really instrumental in managing not only our herd here, but then the herd around the National Wildlife Refuge system and on all public lands. We know that keeping diverse bison species very strong, resistant of disease, also helps with just adapting to changing environments like climate change, for example.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just for context, for friends listening, genes, when we think about genes, we're talking about like DNA. What are those kind of little itty bitty bits and pieces that kind of combine and tell your body what to look like and who you are and who you're related to. So you share very similar genes to your family members, for example. And for these bison, while they are a big family, we want to make sure that there's a lot of different genes so that when they're having babies, they have a big diversity or many different options of genes to kind of have. And like Susan was saying, it helps them adapt and, actually helps prevent like illnesses and stuff. So gene pool sounds like a pretty good thing to focus on. And science is neat that we get to talk about that and learn from it today.
Absolutely.
So we're doing a lot of genetic testing and things like that. And we did talk about their tails, but like, is this stressful for the bison? Like,
right. So moving about 250 bison through 3 days through the corral, one at a time, and separating some calves from mom. Also maybe those male bison that have been through this before, that some walk through and say, oh, I don't mind. Well, they're like, not that doctor again. So each bison takes it differently, but what we do here is we practice low stress handling. It's really interesting philosophy on managing bison as they go through the corral. Very quiet. I don't really hear much sound at all. We see flying down very slowly. So really just letting the bison go through where we're trying to guide them. If not, we do some different there's a corner, we might walk ourselves on the side by them, and they'll say, I don't really want to be near you, and they'll go straight, which is exactly where we were hoping that they would go. We also do a fun thing where we move side to side. The bison dance, as they do that. So this movement here tells them something is moving above me and I see it in my side vision here and I want to get away from that. So then they'll move the opposite direction. So it's actually a really great tool. So you guys can do the bison dance.
I'll do it with you.
So stop truly. We move like this back and forth in synchronized fashion. And the camera crew, everybody's doing it. That's right. So it's really helpful just by that little movement. And lost my earpiece. And very quiet does really help the bison move along to where they need to go. So low stress handling really makes the bison entry and exit out of the corral and their time in the squeeze chute really pretty calm. That's why you see when they release, they're kind of just wandering out and not really stressed at all. Yep.
I do see a chat question that says, have we had one get away? What does that look like?
So earlier today, I think we've had a calf that's been a little confused on its exit point. And so that's why we only work with them one at a time. So then it finally found its way out of the corral. None of the bison have ever left the refuge. If you come out here to visit or to other public lands that have bison, you would probably see cattle guards. So strips of metal that go across the road. We have a wildlife drive. You can see the bison, but you'll notice you go over quite a section of that. That's so that bison don't cross. They actually don't want to because their hoofs are so small. They would feel very unstable. They couldn't step through that. So that's what prevents them from crossing and leaving. The other thing with bison is they're really pretty peaceful, easygoing animals as long as they have everything they need. So lots of wonderful hardy grasses here to eat and water. And herd family life. So they've got everything they need. They have no reason to go.
That's true. Yeah. Well, and I think one question that people like to ask is like, is this a dangerous animal? And I guess ultimately it seems kind of like it depends, right? If they're feeling threatened or babies are in danger, you know, but
So the bison are really, as I mentioned, pretty peaceful, easygoing, relaxed animals. There's one leaving the chute right there. So everyday life with them is pretty calm. If humans are getting too close, they will feel more uncomfortable. Again, you see them, this is a great footage here of them. As long as you give them plenty of space, they're fine. We do say they're big, wild, unpredictable animals, but again, as long as you're not trying to get up close to them, take a photo, ever think you could touch and pet one, just viewing them from a nice, calm distance That way your presence isn't affecting the bison. You get to see them in their natural habitat. Tails are swishing and they're very easygoing.
Cool. And I do see a question in the chat that says, do the bison ever fight? So I guess to that, it sounds like, maybe if they're feeling threatened, or you mentioned like rutting or like mating season where they're kind of fighting for attention. But other than that, they're pretty docile.
That's
so.
exactly right. Yeah.
Very cool.
Rut's the only time where they're bumping and pushing and shoving each other just to establish dominance. But otherwise, after the rut's over, they're back up, grouped up, and great friends.
Cool. Well, on the note of friends, I don't know if our on-camera school joined us, but if you are there, Ms. Barnett's class, if we could go ahead and get Ms. Barnett's class on camera, we'd love to hear questions directly from y'all. So we'll go ahead and give you a minute to maybe get on camera and hopefully ask us some questions directly. And if they're not in today, we've got a bunch of questions from the chat as well. So looks like maybe they're not here. Nope. Oh, well, it's a bummer. All right. Well, do I have questions for you, Susan?
All right.
We're gonna go ahead and take a minute to do some of these chat. So one that's quick and easy. We have someone joining us. It sounds like we're maybe from Lyon, France. And they are wondering, are there bison in any other areas of the world besides North America?
Yeah, there are some bison in Europe. There's the European bison.
Okay.
So that would be the other spot. Yeah.
Perfect. Are they, as far as like size go, are they comparable?
I don't know that one off the top of my head. I feel like they might be a little bit larger, but I'm not positive, to be honest. Yeah.
And so just to be specific, I know we're talking about plains bison, and it sounds like is it a woods bison? Okay,
correct,
that's like
correct.
North America, like Canada.
Correct.
And they're even
Yes.
bigger.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, and I do see a question in the chat, and they want to know, so female bison was 1,200? So
Correct. 1,200
Cool.
pounds for a female cow.
So almost 800 pounds less, obviously, than a lot of their male counterparts, which is correct. Think about that 50-pound baby. Oh my gosh, did I just hear voices? Do we have our on-camera school?
Hi.
Maybe.
Hello.
Welcome. What are questions that you have for us in the field?
We have questions. Get up. Come on.
You. All right, we would love to hear some questions. You'll just have to say them nice and loud since we're in the middle of the field.
Where did bison get their name?
Where do bison get their name? Well, that is their scientific name is bison. So they are called bison. So that's their name.
You know, as far as scientific names go,
not tricky at all, really.
Yeah. As far as scientific names go, sometimes they're based on what they're described as looking like or what they're kind of related to. I'll be honest, I don't know if bison describes what they look like.
Yeah. But there is a big, big
yeah.
bull over
we
there
have a
by
huge
us.
one.
Yes.
Hey, Greg, do you mind panning over really quick? We're gonna have more questions in just a minute, but we want to highlight someone who might be confused or just not wanting to leave just yet. There he is. He's just taking his sweet time. This is not a 25, 30 mile an hour moving bison.
Right.
Look at that tongue. I hope you guys can see it in the classroom.
I'm really looking pretty easy going. You can tell by that tail and kind of taking its time.
Oh.
And they are curious animals.
Yeah. We've had quite a few giving us the eyes. Oh, there he is, checking us out.
Yeah.
Saying hello. I did see early in the chat, someone said, can you ride a bison like you can a bronco?
No, you wouldn't want to. No, they're again, wild animals. And again, just giving them plenty of space because they are really pretty relaxed animals, but they are wild and unpredictable. And it looks like these two might like to pair up and go off to the pasture together. So yeah, this is really amazing. You really do see that grouping of the herd there. Oh, and they are coming over. They are curious.
Wow. This is very funny. You can see the top of our tent. We have all our tech out here.
Yes.
It's taken a lot to do this broadcast today. So having them just stand and see what we're up to is
Yeah.
pretty neat.
I'm so glad you guys get to see them this close.
Oh,
It's pretty amazing.
yeah, this is a treat.
Mhm.
Cool. Cool. And it looks like they're just gonna hang out for a while and maybe have some snacks.
Mhm.
Cool. All right. Well, we can go ahead and toss it back to the classroom. What a neat thing. Okay, so we're ready for another question.
When were bisons introduced to the world?
Ooh, introduced to the world. Oh no, that's a funny
Oh
question.
no, you know what? I don't know the answer to that. They sure have been around for an incredibly long time. I think that they have always been
Been here, sort
yes,
of,
yeah,
like,
they really have. Yeah, I have to
Yeah.
say we had a junior ranger or junior ranger Rick at home, and I think it was talking about that actually. The bison have been around for an incredibly long time. So very good question.
yeah.
Yeah.
And bison have a lot of cousins.
Mhm.
We talked about the buffalo earlier. They are sort of related distantly. They're kind of
Mhm.
related to cows, like
Mhm.
modern cows that we have all over the world today. So I think it's obviously been like thousands of years, but they've kind of
Definitely.
changed over time and evolved. So as far as how long have they been around? A long time. But how
Very, very
the
long
ones
time.
for here? What was that year again?
Yeah, so back in 2007, they were reintroduced here to the refuge. So they were once all through this area, and then they were not for quite a while. And about 17 were reintroduced back in 2017. And then the herd has grown naturally, as well as with other bison coming in from different national wildlife refuges. And today we're at about 250 bison here on our refuge.
Wow. So, and I can't remember if we already mentioned it earlier, but when we're thinking about how many bison used to be, at least in North America, they were across the country, about 30 million back in the
Mhm.
1800s. That is a huge number. And then got down to as low as what, like 500?
Yeah, just in the hundreds. Yeah, about
Not a
500.
couple decades ago.
Yeah, right. So at the basically about 1890, their numbers had dropped that much
Wow.
from hunting, also westward expansion in the rail line. So they had been the numbers had just been dropped so bad that I think really their fate was unknown at that point. And thankfully, by the early 1900s, the bison that were remaining were part of conservation herds so that they didn't lose that species.
Wow. Yeah. What a loss that would be.
Mhm.
So let's go ahead and throw it back to the classroom. Another question. These are great questions, by the way.
What is the exact number of bison in the world?
Oh man.
You know what? I couldn't tell you in the world.
These
That's
are
a really good. I could
questions.
tell you how many are on public lands within the United States. So how about we'll do
That's a number.
we'll do
thing.
that
Okay.
one. Yeah. So with national wildlife refuges, national parks, and Bureau of Land Management together manage about 11,000 bison on public lands. So hopefully if there is some public lands near you that you get to go and see a bison in person.
Definitely
Mhm.
do. And if you figure out that number more specifically to include all those European ones and maybe up in Canada,
Mhm.
please report back because now I want to know too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
great question.
Good question.
More questions from the classroom.
Our question is, how long do bisons live and what age can they die at?
Ooh.
So how long do they live?
How
Something
was
heard?
it? How long do they live and like what do they die of or what age do they die?
What age do they die at?
Okay.
Okay, so our bison, because they don't have a natural predator here, can live upwards of 20 years, sometimes even a little bit longer. And hopefully they do have that really long lifespan here. So yeah, I think that hopefully that answers your question. About 20 years.
20 years. And, an earlier question and like a different was how many babies do they have in a lifetime? We did a little bit of math earlier, and they start having
Yeah.
babies at what, around 2 years
Yep,
old?
about 2 years old,
So
right?
from 2 years until maybe they die at age 20, that's a
Yeah.
lot of babies that you
Yeah.
could have. So no wonder the herd went from, what, 17 to like
Yes.
250.
Right.
Really cool. Great question. Let's have another one.
I should.
How much do baby bisons weigh?
Good
bison.
question. Yeah, those little red dogs, they weigh about 50 pounds at birth. And then they stay that reddish color for about 2 months. And then they're growing, and by a year, you can still see the difference in size. They grow pretty big, pretty fast, but start out at about 50 pounds.
Cool. That's a big baby.
Mhm.
And one of the things we were talking about earlier, these are babies that when they are born take about an hour to start walking. So I don't know about you, but I was not walking at an hour years old.
No, I was
Not at
not
all.
either, not even close.
But these babies, they are ready to rock and roll, and they're moving and keeping up with mama and the rest of the herd pretty much immediately. So very neat. And I'm apologizing for the noise. There's an airplane flying over. We're not too far from Denver International Airport. So like we said earlier, this is weirdly very close to the city. So please come visit sometime. It is not hard to get there and
Yes.
really cool.
Yep, just straight shot from the airport, about 15 minutes.
Let's get one more question from the classroom, and then we'll go ahead and kind of switch gears.
Yeah. How old was the oldest bison alive?
How old is the oldest bison like ever that we've recorded?
Yes.
I know that when I was talking to our person that has been to other national wildlife refuges, I think that they've had a female upwards close to about 25 years old. So that
Wow.
is, yeah, that's kind of really a very long lifespan for the bison. So I would think she's probably one of the older bison within National Wildlife Refuge.
That bison could rent a car.
Yes,
That's an old bison.
that's right.
Cool.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. Those were amazing questions.
Thank you.
Y'all are great. When we were thinking about kind of conserving and elongating the lifespan of these bison, why do we care? Why are we wanting to conserve?
So bison are culturally and historically significant. For the Native Americans, that was really their survival and also just their well-being. They were very connected, also spiritually, to the bison. Over time, the bison have also been amazing grazers. We call them the lawnmowers of the shortgrass prairie. They do graze along those grasses, and they basically give them a haircut. So they don't pull the roots out, which is really important. So as they graze down, the grasses grow back. And then when you think about the prairie, it's really teeming with life of so many different wildlife species. And that's how the prairie is able to survive. So why do we care about bison? We care about bison because it's the right thing to do. They're also a very iconic species. They are our mammal here for the US. They were designated as our land mammal back in 2016. But they really keep the prairie healthy for so many different species, and including one that I will tell you that's also here at Rocky Mountain Arsenal National Wildlife Refuge, the endangered black-footed ferret. And so
Those are cute.
they are, but they need a hardy prairie to survive. They need prairie dogs, that's what they eat. And so what do prairie dogs need? They need grasses to survive. And what do the bison do? Keep those grasses healthy. So you can see how this all is connected.
Cool. And I think actually we might have a photo of a black-footed ferret. If we can
Great.
cue that really quick. Just so that you know how many animals thrive and depend and also benefit from this animal being around, and therefore us protecting it. So you can see that little black-footed ferret. It's wild to think that that eats a prairie dog, which doesn't look too much different in size, does it?
They are, in fact, fun fact for you all, they weigh the same. So ferret weighs 3 pounds.
Wow.
And prairie dog weighs 3 pounds. So we call them the masked bandit also, but once thought to be extinct. We do have ferrets here on the prairie, so they hunt at night for prairie dogs.
Wow, that's wild. So if you come and visit us at the refuge, or I say us, if you visit Susan and the rest of our friends out here at the refuge, you might get to see some of these critters. So that's pretty neat. So we're talking about prairie dogs, we've got black-footed ferrets. Do we have like other birds and things here worth protecting as well?
Sure. So this place started out because of the bald eagle. That's our national symbol, once an endangered species as well. It was roosting or spending the night here. So we see eagles here in the winter time, a few in the summer as well. We also have deer, coyotes, as I had mentioned, burrowing owls, about the size of your hand, up during the day. They're really fun. We also have quite a bit of waterfowl on our lakes seasonally, so and just other hawks and things. So a lot really going on here at the refuge. With all of the birds and mammals that we have here, we have about 330 different species of wildlife.
Wow, that's a lot. So for context, so that you understand also just how amazing this is at this point, we talked about, right, 30 million bison existing a couple hundred years ago to being, dwindled down to a couple hundred for the whole country. About 20 years ago or so, even longer, this was not inhabited by bison. In fact, the space was occupied by the military, right? And they were doing manufacturing.
Right.
So it was not a healthy ecosystem of animals. And so how have bison kind of influenced that?
Great question. So, right, as we mentioned, so U.S. Army had the site to manufacture and make munitions to support World War II. And prior to that, there were a lot of homesteaders out here. So they had cleared away the native prairie grasses and grown crops. So as you kind of fast forward through the cleanup of the site, and bringing bison back, there's a lot of work on, and there goes my headset again. There's a lot of work on reseeding this to be a natural prairie, and bison are really the cornerstone of that. They're the key species that help us spread the seeds as they are on those plants, or has drive them back into the soil, replanting. They do a lot of fabulous work for us. They are grazing and clipping down so the grasses are growing more vibrant. But they really have transformed the landscape from more of like a weedy species that is just not as beneficial for habitat to a very healthy shortgrass prairie.
Wow, that is so cool. It looks like we have two more bison that maybe want to say goodbye before our broadcast ends. Greg, if you want to go ahead and pan over really quick. Oh, look at them having a quick snack, and on their way they go.
And they're really pairing up as they leave, which is pretty neat. I'm glad you all have gotten a chance to see that today.
That is very cool. So this is such a huge, and one is running to join them.
Oh, yeah.
All
I
the
all
friends.
figured out how to get back to their herd.
What an endeavor. Yeah. Well, this is amazing. And it sounds like not only has this been such like a project for you all and other people around the United States, but it's a worthwhile one. Is there anything you want to leave our students with today?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you so much for learning about bison. We hope you continue to learn about shortgrass prairie and its ecosystem, also the benefits of bison, and learn about some of the other conservation herds and other national wildlife refuges. They are so important. They're really set aside just for wildlife, and really a place for wildlife to thrive. So thank you all so much for joining in today.
Yeah, what a cool opportunity. So thank you for your knowledge. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed today's broadcast, we would love for you to join us again next month on Thursday, November 17th. We are going to be doing T-Rex to Turkey, in which case we go to the basement of the museum and see some collections as we talk to ornithologists and paleontologists about how birds descended from dinosaurs. So kind of another animal one to think about, just throwing it back a couple million years. So anyways, please join us next month. We'd love to see you. Thank you again. Thank you for being on camera, our crew from earlier, and we'd love to see you again later. So have an amazing day.
Bye. Thank you.